Hi, this is Bruce, and today we'll be looking at part 2 of our CSS grid layout. In part 1, what we did was we created a photo gallery where we put a grid on the main page just with one column, and then we created a second CSS layout grid for just the gallery section and put that into 2 columns. So essentially this is what we had. On the grid class, we added grid, and this is one column with a row gap of 1em, and that's for the main HTML of the page. And then we added a second grid, so a nested grid for the gallery element with 2 columns, 1 fraction each, and added some row gaps and column gaps as well. So what we want to do now is another grid to improve the layout of the nav, and then we'll add a media query in order to have the layout change for larger screens such as desktops and laptops. So I'll just create a little comment here. Using asterisk, using slash asterisk, and then asterisk slash to close the comment. And we'll set the nav up to display grid. And we've got 3 elements, 3 links in our nav for now. So we'll set the grid template columns to repeat. So we use the repeat method 3 times 1 fraction. And if we save that and upload, then we should see page 2. And now you can see we've got the nav organized into 3 equal columns. Okay, so now let's add some styling to make our nav look a little bit better. So first thing we'll do is we will align the text inside the links. So nav, so I'm going to create a style on the links or the anchor tags inside the nav element and set text align to be equal to center. Now you can see our text is centered. The next thing I'd like to do is to add a color to the links, a custom color rather than the default. So I'm going to create a pseudo element on the link or on the anchor tag, and set the color to the default link color for Google. And set the alpha to 1. And now if we take a look at that, we can see we've got a nice blue color for the links, although the visited link is still the default purple. So I'm going to add a second style to this, so nav A with the pseudo element to be visited. And now you can see all 3 are the same. Next thing I want to do is to give users an indication that these are clickable links. So we're going to create a hover pseudo element and change the color to a just slightly off-white color. But of course, for that to work, I'd have to insert my background. So I'd have to change the background colors. So let's set up the background color for the links. Let's set the alpha to 0.9, give it just a little bit of a transparency. And then in the hover, we'll set the background color to something darker, obviously, since we've set the color to almost white. Okay, let's see how this works. Good, so we've got the links and visited with a light blue background and blue link that's underlined. And then when we hover over those links, you can see the background gets darker and the text gets lighter. I'm going to add just a little bit of padding to create a bit of room, bit of space on the top and bottom. So padding 0.5 em on top and bottom, and 0 right and left. There, that's looking a little bit better. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to get rid of the text decoration on hover. So get rid of the underline using the text decoration style or property. And now you can see the underline disappears. We keep it there for the original version, so people can. It's a further indication that that's a link, and get rid of it for the hover version where we no longer need it. So our nav's looking pretty good now. We've got it as a grid. We've added some styles to it. Next thing we'd like to do is we'd like to make the site a little bit more responsive, so that when we're on a larger screen, we've got 4 columns rather than just 2. And then on the smaller screen, we'll keep the 2 columns. So we can see that just by resizing the browser, right? How it stays the same. We can also right-click and inspect, and then choose a device. So you can see I've got iPhone 6 here chosen, and this is more or less what it should look like on the iPhone 6. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to create another comment using / for the media queries. Just makes it easier to find it when we're coming back to it later. And I'm going to create a media query setting that applies to the screen, and a min width of 30 em to start. So what I want to change is the grid template columns for the gallery. So I'm just going to copy this entire style and paste it down here inside the media query. All right, so you notice that the media query opens up here at the end of line 94 and closes down here at line 104. But we don't need not sure what happened there, but we don't need display grid because that's not changing. And for now, we won't worry about changing our column or row gaps. The only thing we need to change is the number of columns. So you can see I've added 2 columns, or 2 more fractional columns. And if we refresh here, we can see that it's not working. I think I found out where my thing went there. And now if we refresh here, we can see that it is working properly. One more thing that we have to do to make it truly responsive is add the meta viewport tag in the head of our HTML. Let me just actually go and copy it here so I don't get the syntax wrong. So you can see we're setting the viewport initial width to the device width and the initial scale to 1 or 100%. And now if we go back here and refresh, if we make the viewport smaller, so once it hits 30M, it should snap over to 2 columns. And then obviously if we make it bigger, it goes back to 4 columns. So I'm looking at this and thinking that's awfully small. So let's go for the photos. We can't really see much here. So let's go back and increase this to 60M. So now we're 2 columns right up to 60M, and then we go to 4 columns. I think that's a much better break point for this media query. Of course, you can have as many media queries as you want. We could go from a 1 column to 2 to 3 to 4, depending on the screen size. Just adding as we go. So if we wanted to set one up for that 30, where we go to 2, and then we want to start off with just 1 column on the original mobile device. Right, so there's 1 column. When we hit 30, we go to 2, and when we hit 60, we don't ever hit 60. What's going on? Let's try the order here. There we go. So let's try this again. So when we're over 60, we've got 4 columns. When we're over 30, we've got 2 columns. And when we're less than 30, we're down to 1 column. So there's our another nested grid for the nav and a couple of media queries. I hope this helps.